Hey guys, I'm Hunter. That's Zach. Welcome to another episode of the Any Given Day podcast. I am slightly more sane now than a second ago, now that I've had a bit more coffee. Bonner is feeling a bit under the weather. He's going to try and tough through this one. Uh, but here we are for our Thanksgiving weekend, our hate week prediction show, preview show, however you want to call it. It's an early one. We said we'd get it last night. We were not able to because he's feeling under the weather. So we're gonna try and get it knocked out today. Um, I guess first we have to start off with our reactions to the top six change, the shakeup in the top six, and maybe just a few critiques here of the top 25, like why Tennessee is still in the top 25. So yeah, Bonner. Washington got moved up to number 4, and in a bit of a shock, I feel. You know.
Yeah. I didn't think they'd do it now. I figured they'd wait at least until Florida State lost, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess they just saw the quarterback wasn't. They don't really have a quarterback, so now that Jordan Travis is out, so I guess they just went ahead and made the move, so they don't have to try and get messy with it later and try and make a move if Florida State does go undefeated. So
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I was a bit thrown at first about it, but it kind of made sense. Florida State has struggled a bit with some other teams, maybe and they've shown flashes and glimpses that they could possibly end up losing and getting themselves knocked out of this playoffs before the season's over. Without Jordan Travis, it's definitely going to be interesting, and we'll get a bit more into that when we pull up to their game on our predictions. But with that all being said, we're going into hate week, Bonner. So we'll go ahead and get this knocked out before we get into the game predictions. How would you rank your top 5 rivalries all time?
I feel like Army Navy has to be 1.
Ooh, interesting. Number 1.
Probably the Iron Bowl is 2.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan and Ohio State is 3. Egg Bowl 4. And Clean Old Fashioned Hate 5.
Ooh, wow. You put clean old fashioned hate up there. Look, and this is not a knock on that, but I'm iffy on clean old fashioned hate. Right? I get why it's been so bad, but like the most hate filled I've ever been towards Tech was in 2019 when they ended up costing George Pickens the first half of the SEC championship.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I've grown up just with Georgia dominating this rivalry to where it doesn't even feel like a rivalry at times. That's just my opinion. But hey, respect. Me, I grew up. For those of you who don't know, and for those of you who do know, for those of you who do know, you know what I'm fixing to say. I'm going to put the Iron Bowl at number 1 because my mom is from Alabama. She is a converted Georgia fan, but uh, her side of the family, that side of my family, is majority of them are Bama fans. You have a little sect of Auburn fans in there, right? And so I grew up around the Iron Bowl. So for me, I know how much like hatred there is in that game. Granted, the family has never let that game come in between them on anything. Thank the Lord. But it's obviously led to a lot of things, a lot of problems over in the state of Alabama before. I think you've even had a few murders over it. But so I'm going to rank that one number 1. I'm going to rank the Egg Bowl number 2. Just because on the years where neither one of those teams are really that good, that game is always one to look forward to. It's always one that's fun to watch as well, because even if one team is like superior during the season, the other team will always put up their best shot, their best fight during that game. So I've got that one ranked number 2, and the hatred between those two schools, right? It's very classist, if you will. You got those uppity rebels and those quote unquote inbred bulldogs, right? Is probably how they view each other. So that's number 2. Army Navy for me is going to be 3, just because that is one of the premier rivalries in the sport, and it's no shot at Air Force, but everyone looks forward to the Army Navy game. 4 is going to be, let's see, I'll say Ohio State and Michigan, number 4. Just because that thing can but it is one of the top rivalries in the sport. And they're both good right now, so you're always going to have some great games. And it's going to be taken to another level this year because of all the stuff between Ohio State and all the stuff with the cheating scandal out of Michigan. It could get violent this year. I think it might. And then for an underrated number 5, not underrated number 5, I'll put the Deep South's oldest rivalry, Georgia and Auburn, at number 5. Because, once again, that's another rivalry I grew up in. So, there's my top 5. Any thoughts on it?
No, sounds good.
Okay. Moving on to our predictions. Game 1 is, of course, the Egg Bowl. So this is at this point for me, I have known most of this game to take place mostly on Thanksgiving. This one's been, they hate each other, buddy. They hate each other. They hate each other so much. And like I said, I've known this one to happen on Thanksgiving because it's happened 23 times on Thanksgiving. And you've had several instances of just absurdity in this rivalry and in this game. I think one of the biggest ones has to be in 1926. Mississippi State had a streak going, and Ole Miss finally broke the streak, and Mississippi State fans were so up in arms that a brawl broke out where the Mississippi State fans took their chairs and started beating the Ole Miss fans with them. Till, like, the chairs busted up and everything. And that's actually what led to the creation of the trophy for the game. I don't know why. I don't know why they're like, oh, hey, let's reward them with a trophy for this game. But anyway, from that to 83's Immaculate Deflection, otherwise known as the Win Bowl, this game has had some purely absurd things. You also, like, put this for instance. Do you remember 2014? CBS passed up on broadcasting the Iron Bowl to broadcast the Egg Bowl. because Mississippi State was in the playoff picture at that point. They had a chance to go to the SEC championship had they won against Ole Miss, and Auburn beat Alabama. Obviously, that did not happen, but they had a chance to. So CBS was like, "Hey, let's broadcast this. We don't ever get a chance to broadcast the Egg Bowl," and so that happened. And then obviously you have the piss and miss in 2019. Absurd things happen in this rivalry. A lot of things happen in a lot of rivalries. But this one is so hate-filled sometimes. It's stupid, right? And as much as I want to say that Mississippi State's going to go and win this game and continue the streak from last year with Mike Leach's last ever win, Ole Miss should roll in this one, and I think they're going to. And jumping straight from like the rivalry stuff straight to a pick, but it's a pretty simple pick to me. Ole Miss rolls. They've got the better offense. Mississippi State right now is just in a funk. I honestly think they're still recovering from Leach's passing. So, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is winning this game. Mississippi State has not been great this year. Granted, obviously, unfortunate circumstances led to this year being this way, but Ole Miss has been quite good outside of the Alabama and Alabama and Georgia games. So, outside of those two games, they've been quite good.
Yeah.
So, I don't expect this game to be any different, even though it's at Mississippi State. I don't think it'll be close.
Yeah. And one last thing before we move on about Ole Miss. This is something I saw pointed out by Brooks Austin. Our guy, right? But he pointed out that, or was it? It was on one of his shows that was pointed out. But when you look at Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, this might be one of the best teams they ever have, because they went up and they did not go and lose a game they weren't supposed to. They won all the games they were supposed to win. They just ended up going up against Alabama and Georgia in the same year. In theory, there was a possibility if they had not had to play Georgia as a cross-divisional team this year, that they would only have one loss, which is honestly kind of crazy to think about. Just you don't see that often with Ole Miss, but I thought that was interesting. So who knows? Maybe Lane's got everything turned around over there. Moving on to game 2, right? Texas Tech at Texas, in the battle for the Chancellor's Spurs. Some specially designed Spurs that have Texas's logo on the centerpiece on one side, Texas Tech's logo on the other side of that centerpiece, and I think they're made of silver and gold. It's not going to go too in depth on the rivalry. I think Texas has improved a bit from what I saw in this past week's game, because it was more Sarkisian actually coached them up in this game, right? It wasn't just play calling. They were struggling a bit, but they found a way to win. Sarkisian actually coached them to a win. It wasn't just, okay, I'm going to go and outcall you on plays, which shows a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of growth by Sarkisian as a coach, I guess, is the best way to put it. So I think Texas will win. If this was at Lubbock, if this was in Lubbock, I would say it might be a bit crazier, but I think Texas will pull out the win.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like you said, Sarkisian kind of coached him up a little bit in that last game, and hopefully that'll lead into this game. Texas is definitely the more talented team.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to be a matter of if they can close this game out instead of taking a big lead and letting them come back into it. If they can let Texas Tech come back into this game, it could be interesting, but I think Texas wins.
Okay. So no disagreement so far on this one. There's a possibility of a disagreement on this next one. Maybe. I don't think so though. Game 3, we have the Civil War, and I do not care whether or not they acknowledge it. Other people still call it the Civil War. Oregon State is going to Oregon this week for an 8:30 kickoff on Friday, which, speaking of, already mentioned the Egg Bowl was on Thanksgiving, so it's on Thursday, but Texas Tech at Texas is also on Friday. It's going to be a 7:30 Eastern kickoff. So, just you've got good games on Friday, which is strange to say, but also cool. Great Thanksgiving weekend plans. So anyways, back to the back to the Civil War. The trophy that the alumni associations get for the winning alumni association that they'll get is the Platypus Trophy, because a platypus has a duck bill while also having a beaver tail. So, haha, funny. They used to have one that would go to the school itself, but that one got lost or something, and when they did find it again after a decade or so, they didn't really care much about bringing it out and giving it back to the other schools, and neither one really cared one way or the other for it. So the alumni associations do play for a newer variation of the Platypus Trophy. Not that they themselves get on the field to play, but they're awarded it. This game has some history of its own, between the toilet bowl of '83, just heavy downpour that year, and terrible play on both sides, multiple turnovers. It was horrendous from my understanding of it. It happened before I was born. But from that to the War of Roses in '09, where the game decided who would go on to play in the Rose Bowl that year. Which, by the way, can we just... War of the Roses. Masterpiece of a name right there. They've also had several moments off the field, though, in this rivalry. 1954, several Oregon students were caught trying to go ahead and light the pregame bonfire that Oregon State was going to do. Like 50 students from Oregon were caught infiltrating and trying to light it beforehand, and about half of them were caught and then used for menial labor by the fraternities at the time. They were forced to have their heads shaved, and they were painted orange and black all over them. So it was standard 1950s frat stuff. So you do have that. But getting from the off the field stuff to onto the game, after how Oregon State played this past week, I'm hesitant to even think that they can pull off the upset. In Autzen, I don't think they can. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Oregon to win. I think it could turn into a possibly good game, but knowing where Dan Lanning comes from, where his coaching tree is, Kirby and Saban, I think Oregon wins, and I think it could possibly be big.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Oregon State gave Washington a fight, but Oregon, I have stood firm on the fact that Oregon is the better team than Washington. And that was just if you played them on a neutral site right now, Oregon would win.
Yep.
So by that logic, Oregon's winning this game. Probably, I'm not going to say easily. It may get close, but I think Oregon wins it.
Okay. Well, That is the last of the games on Friday. So moving on to the Saturday slate, we're going to start off with a game that normally in most years would probably be the game of the week. But it is not the most impactful game on the standings right now. So our fourth game of the week is going to be the Iron Bowl, with Alabama having to go to Auburn. Possible deference on this one too between us, just because we both know how this game gets when it goes to Auburn. 3:30 kick. It's going to be stupid and insane. But this game originated in 1893. The first televised game was in '64 with Joe Namath, the quarterback over at Alabama at the time, which is just insane to think about. Broadway Joe. Bama won that game 21-14, and then you have so when you actually look at it, you have moments in this game. Most of the moments are Auburn wins, right? The notable moments. Whereas with Bama, it's just like these long streaks of dominance. And then these improbable moments where Auburn pulls the upset when they're technically not supposed to, or when they somehow screw up on a game they are supposed to win. That's what I gathered, at least, because you have the Reign of Terror from 73 to 81 by Bear Bryant, where, they just dismantled Auburn in those years. It wasn't even close. And from that, in 82 came the moment in 82 where Bo goes over the top to lead the upset of Auburn being Alabama, which might have also inadvertently caused Paul Bear Bryant's death, because after that, he retired after that game and literally died 60 days later. So there's a little fact for you. Bo Jackson may have killed Bear Bryant inadvertently. You have the kick in 85. You have the fumble in 97. All the way to the comeback in 2010, right? And then obviously everyone knows what happened after the comeback in 2010. Harvey Updike poisoned the trees in response to the Auburn fans putting, maybe not necessarily in response to the Auburn fans putting Auburn jersey on Bear Bryant's statue, but he ended up poisoning the trees, getting arrested for it, going to jail for it. And then obviously one we're both familiar with, the kick six. It's just I still feel bad for Adam on that, man. Man, good guy. Still though, this game typically does decide the SEC West, and also heavily impacts the national championship picture, and it still kind of does to this Saturday. So, I want to say that Auburn got skull drug by New Mexico State because they were looking past them to Alabama. Alabama has to go to Jordan Hare this time round. And because of those two things, I think this is going to be a fight. I think this is going to be more of a fight than people believe. I think Alabama pulls out a slim victory, though. So I've got Alabama winning. Auburn might pull the upset, but I think Alabama's clicking at the right moment with the offense. Plus, as a Georgia fan, I do not want to have to deal with Alabama off a loss, a fresh loss at that. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I just, as much as I would love to see Auburn come in here and win this game, just for chaos sake, I don't think that they're gonna be able to do it. It's just talent wise, Alabama is much more talented than Auburn is. And it's gonna get there. Auburn will get there. Hugh Freeze will get them there. It's just gonna take time, and they're not quite there this year. And Alabama's got one of the most talented teams in college football history by the numbers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it could be close. It definitely will be close. Being in Jordan Hare, it's freaky voodoo magic. So, it'll be close, but I think Alabama will pull it out, and they'll win it.
Okay. Well, fun fact about the Iron Bowl. Do you know why it's called the Iron Bowl?
I do not.
So, originally this game was played at a neutral site in Birmingham.
I did know that.
Yes. Birmingham also used to be where the SEC championship was played.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, though, Birmingham at one point was Pittsburgh's top competitor in like steel manufacturing and stuff.
Really?
Yes. And so a lot of iron came out of Birmingham, so thus it was called the Iron Bowl. So there you go. Moving on to Game 5. Don't say I don't keep people informed. Trust me, that is one thing I've got is all these stupid, crazy stats up here. Well, not really stats, but like trivia and stuff. Game 5 is going to be Florida State at Florida. Sunshine Showdown. Give me a second. It's honestly, this one could have decided a lot, and I think coming into this week, I was actually looking at Florida to pull the upset until Graham Mertz got injured. And Jordan Travis got injured. Like, the moment Jordan Travis got injured, I was like, oh, that could possibly happen. And then I also saw Graham Mertz go and injure his collarbone, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. You got two backup quarterbacks coming into the swamp. One might play for Florida, but still, that is a raucous environment to get your first start in, even if you are Florida's quarterback. Going into this game, I was for sure of the thought, before both injuries happened last weekend, I was looking at it as I did not think Florida would be able to beat Mizzou, which they did not. It was a fight for sure last week. But my thought process was, because of that, I felt Florida was going to be a wounded animal backed into a corner. And what's the most dangerous animal? A wounded one backed into the corner. So I had Florida winning this one originally. I think Florida State's going to out-talent them right now, which is sad to say, about Florida of all teams. It sucks, really. But yeah, it sucks, man, that both of these quarterbacks got injured, because this rivalry is so historic. You got the choke at Doak all the way to the swindle at the Swamp. Which isn't even that far apart in history comparatively. Like less than a decade, I think. But this game actually decided who went on to compete in the Natty, like 6 times from 93 to 2000. 6 times the winner of this game went on to compete in the national championship. And once they even had a rematch in a Sugar Bowl game, the choke, like if I remember correctly, the choke at Doak happened, and then They got matched up against each other in the Sugar Bowl that year, and Florida State avenged their loss. So you have a lot of history in this one, recent history at that, and that's the tragic part of the injuries. So, but who knows? Maybe we'll be calling this the backup game, right? But I think Florida State wins this one. I think Tate Rodemaker has just a bit more experience in his system and more experience as a quarterback playing in an actual game before. So that's my thoughts. Yours?
It's gonna be a close one. I mean, it's like you said. I mean, the Swamp is a really hard place to play at. Really hard, even for a new quarterback that plays for Florida. So, I'm taking Florida.
Wow.
I think in the Swamp, I have not given Florida anything all year long, and they gave Missouri a fight. So I think they're going to be. I mean, they're fighting for bowl eligibility at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can win, if they can beat Florida State, they'll get in a bowl this year.
Yep.
So that's got to mean something. Obviously, Florida State's playing for a playoff spot, but there are levels, I guess. But
yeah,
I'm
there
taking
is.
Florida, I guess.
Okay, so our first deferral between the two of us. Wow. Didn't I thought it would have been the opposite way a few weeks ago on this one, but yeah.
I did too.
Game 6, Wazoo at Washington for the Apple Cup. I think this one's it's being played in Seattle. I don't even know why I thought any different. But honestly, I don't know what to think of this one. I ain't got much history on this one. It's an old rivalry between these two, but I want to say I'm undecided on this one because there's every chance that Wazoo could pull the upset with how they've been playing, but I don't see them actually being Washington. If they did pull the upset, the Pac-12 would have finally Pac-12'd itself. So I don't know. I'll take Washington. I'll take Washington to win the Apple Cup this year.
Yeah, I'm not as conflicted as you. Washington's rolling in this one.
Yeah, okay.
Washington's rolling this one.
Fair enough. I just, with how Washington's been playing the past few weeks and Washington State's been playing the last few weeks, I don't know.
I understand it.
Anyway, moving on to our next rivalry game, game number 7, something we are very much both well informed on. This is Georgia at Georgia Tech in a 7:30 kickoff. When was the last time Tech and Georgia kicked off at night?
It's been a minute.
Yeah,
I don't remember. It's been a minute though.
Me neither. Like, I think the last, I don't have an exact year, but I think the last time they kicked off, my grandmother on my mom's side was still alive. So,
Right.
which she passed away over a decade ago. So it's been a while. Plain old fashioned hate. That's what this is. I think during the high points of this rivalry, that is too weak of a word. Sometimes it's almost something beyond hate when both teams are good. At this point, I think it might be too strong of a word. A lot I've also seen a lot of people call it the jocks versus the nerds because of how the schools used to be viewed in the state. Uh, so I just this Tech Georgia rivalry has led to some interesting moments, um, where Tech students have stolen the chapel bell out of the church over on Georgia's campus, and then you have had a moment or two where Georgia students have gone and stolen the Ramblin' Wreck, which is a car that was built by the engineering course over at Tech. I think is what it is. I don't really pay much attention to them. They're weirdos. But would you believe that Big Game Booner or Big Game Sooner or whatever his name is, the one who's been on all the weird lists, he actually has Georgia on upset alert this week.
On what planet?
I don't know. I don't know. With how emphatic Kirby is about this rivalry, Georgia rolls. It could get ugly too, for all we know. But I will say I do think at this point in time I do think Brent Key is turning the program around for Tech. What's going to suck though is the fact that Tech is not going to they're not going to add any different courses like some business degrees or like some kind of journalism degree, which journalism degree at an engineering school probably not a smart idea, let's be honest, but you could add some courses and majors to help get you some better players, right? Recruiting wise. They're not going to do that. They're definitely not going to go and lighten their their admissions. They're not going to lighten their admissions in the fact that to make it easier for some of the more talented athletes to get in. But so this rivalry might still be strained a bit, but Brent Key, he's also been on the Tech side of this rivalry. He's a Georgia Tech alum himself. So smart man, but he ain't gonna be smart enough to out chess Kirby on the football field. So Georgia.
Yeah, I agree. It's just talent wise, Tech can't compete over a whole game with what Georgia has talent wise. I don't think it could be close like it was last year in the first half, but I think Georgia will pull away by the end.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I was thinking. Our next game and our final game, our game of the week, is going to be Ohio State up at Michigan. Anyone who knows this rivalry, anyone who's watched ESPN during Hate Week before, during the final week of college football before, they've gone over and over about how much these two teams hate each other. And so much so that Ohio State will cross out all the M's on campus, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and year round they refer to Michigan as that team up north, which is stupid, right? You've once seen Jon Stewart refer to this as a religious dispute between Muslims, right? Because the Sunni and the Shiite Muslims don't always agree on everything, right? And when they do, things tend to get violent. So Jon Stewart once put this game and this rivalry as that, a religious dispute between those two groups, which is hilarious to think about. Basically, these teams do not like each other, and I think the cheating scandal has only deepened that. You have Michigan fans who are so convinced that they're somehow the victims in this. They're not. Like, let me put it this way. I do not like Ohio State. I find them, what's the word? Frustrating, I guess, with the fact that they have
Mm-hmm.
to put the in front of their school name. You're the only Ohio State University that I know of. I don't care about the at all. It's infuriating, honestly. So that being said, as angry as Ohio State gets me, do you know how bad you have to screw up for me to actually pull for Ohio State to beat you?
Very.
Very. I'm hoping Ohio State rolls them. This is up in Ann Arbor, though, so let that be known right now. It's up in Ann Arbor. However, Ohio State, they've got nothing to lose on this one, right? Ryan Day has nothing to lose on this one. You go and you play this one and you lose it as Ryan Day, that's 3 losses to Michigan in a row. For an
Yep.
Ohio State head coach, that's not good, buddy. So I think that's why he's allowed Jim Knowles to go and kind of restructure the defense to his liking. The offense isn't as explosive in years past in a sense. I can honestly say I think this might be a defense first football team, which is weird to say. They're definitely a lot more physical than they were. And this is going to be the best interior D line that Michigan has played all year. So I'm going to say it's going to be close, but Ohio State wins. I think Michigan's favored by a bit, by a few points, but I think Ohio State wins because Ryan Day has to win. He has to win. And honestly, I think it's going to be everyone versus Michigan on this one. For once, they're not wrong on that. As much as Harbaugh wants them to be America's team, they are not, in fact, the Atlanta Braves. And that is right. I said the Atlanta Braves and not the Dallas Cowboys because the Atlanta Braves are America's actual team. The Cowboys are overrated. Anyways, your thoughts, Bonner?
Wrong.
Wrong?
Wrong.
Wrong.
Michigan's winning this game 3 years in a row. Three years in a row.
How?
How?
How? Yeah. How do you trust
Because,
me?
listen. It's a thought process, all right? And it's a very weird thought process. But
Yeah, I can tell.
it's a thought process nonetheless. Okay. And I will go over that if they win.
If they win, no. How do you trust J.J. McCarthy? J.J. McCarthy over the past 2 weeks hasn't, especially this past week, proven to me he can't throw the ball. I do not trust him to throw the ball to win
I
this
don't
game.
trust J.J. McCarthy. I trust Blake Corum.
And I think the Ohio State interior D line is going to stop Blake Corum. I think the defense is going to set the edges right. Dear Lord. Holy crap. Oh, I think this is the most agitated I've ever been by one of your picks.
I'm just saying. I know you hate Michigan, all right? And I hate Michigan too. And I would love to see Ohio State destroy them. But in my heart of hearts, I know I have this feeling that Michigan's going to find a way to win and just piss off all of America.
Yeah, that's what they don't realize. They're not America's team because they're hated. They're America's team because everyone hates them.
Yeah.
They're America's favorite team to hate. But
Yeah.
I guess that brings an end to it
Kind of like
for
the Patriots.
kind of like the Patriots or the Cowboys. No one likes them. Overhyped and overrated.
Or the Cowboys.
Everyone loves the Braves, though.
Yep.
Anyways, I think that's where we're going to call it for this week. It's been a fast early morning, I'll say, with starting off our day with this recording. So, yeah, once again, everyone, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next play.
Bye.